السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. Last time we finished Surat Al-Balad, and tonight inshallah we're going to go through Surat Al-Shams. Surat Al-Shams is a Makki surah. All of it, 15 ayah, it's not long surah. And like some of the Makki surahs we have gone through before, Surah Al-Shams comes in short sentences, starting with lots of oath. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by Al-Shams. One of the things that Surah Al-Shams and other surahs will draw our attention to is the fact that the surah name is derived from the beginning, the first word of the surah, like Surat Al-Fajr, Surat Al-Balad, Surat Al-Shams, Surat Al-Layl, Surat Al-Duha. All of these surahs are named after the first word of the surah. And as we mentioned before, the name of the surah is not the title of the surah. The name of the surah is the name given to it by Allah as He taught it to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What's the difference between surah name and title? Title would mean a theme, meaning if the surah name is the same as a title, the whole surah should be about Al-Shams, but that's not the case. Well, the whole surah will be about Al-Balad or Al-Fajr. That's not the case. So the name is a surah marker, not a title. Title of any book or any chapter or any article that people write captures what the surah or what the chapter or book is about. So if you have a book, for example, titled Tomorrow's Inventions, then we know that the book is going to be talking about future inventions. What would they look like? What areas will they cover? What likely they are going to look like? What materials will be needed? Things that serve the title. So the title in Arabic would be the subject. But the surah name is not necessarily the subject. So I just wanted to clarify the difference. All the Quran surahs, except for very few, are named but not titled. Surah Al-Baqarah is not about Al-Baqarah, right? But Surah Al-Imran is about Al-Imran and other things. But it was chosen by Allah to highlight the story because the basis of the people of the book and all of this comes from Al-Imran, the people of Imran, the family of Imran. Okay? Surah Yusuf, for example, is all of it about Yusuf, right? But Surah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not about Prophet Muhammad. It's about Prophet Muhammad in his relationship to the community and the community's reaction to the faith and the message. So the title is not always what the surah is about, or the name is not always a title. Surah Yusuf, the name and the title is one and the same. But that does not apply to the rest of the Quran. Surah Maryam is not exclusively about Maryam, but Maryam is one of the subjects, right? it doesn't mean that it captures everything there is to say about Maryam, because Maryam is mentioned in other surahs. Okay? But the chosen name for the surah is Surah Maryam, because it's a highlighted subject in the surah. Okay? So, Surah Ash-Shams is not just about Ash-Shams, but the word Ash-Shams is in the beginning of the surah, as we mentioned, like Surah Al-Fajr, Al-Balad, Al-Layl, Al-Duha, Al-Qadr. All of this capture the name of the surah from the beginning of the surah. That's it. Like Surah Al-Qari'ah, it starts off with Al-Qari'ah, Ma Al-Qari'ah, right? وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْقَارِعَةُ يَوْمَ يَكُونُ النَّاسُ كَالْفَرَاشِ الْمَبْثُوثِ وَتَكُونُ الْجِبَالُ. So the surah happens to be about the day of Qiyamah and the events of Al-Qiyamah, some of the events of Al-Qiyamah, that is titled Al-Qari'ah. So the title and the name here are one and the same. Okay? But that's not a standard to be followed in the Quran surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. Short surah, 15 ayah, all Makki. Standard topics of Mecca is talking about some of the signs that Allah puts out in the universe or in His creation. And then if it is carrying a swearing, you will find the answer to the swearing in some parts of the surah, like here, after swearing by a nafs and what happens when Allah created it and gave it its nature, then He says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. All of the qasam, all of the swearing in the surah is to say, قَدْ, certainly the person who purifies oneself will be successful. That's all what the qasam is about. So it shows how important it is that we are certain that our success in this life and in the hereafter is hinged upon our self-purification. Of course, self-purification is a lifelong process. There is nobody ever who says, I purified myself and I finished, myself is now pure. Because no matter how hard you try, the self gets polluted. It gets minced in things you don't know and you do not recognize at many times. So the whole thing is, if we start by adulthood, when we turn to the age of teenagers, to purify, before that we have to start recognizing what the pollutants are. It is like washing a dish. You have to recognize what is it that makes dirt in the dish, so that you can target those dirts and remove them completely then wash the dish to remove the impact or residue of this. It is like when we go to the bathroom and we clean ourselves after finishing, you do not just remove the feces or urine that came out, you wash to remove the residues and the effect, the athar that they leave behind. Because with every dirt, there is always some residuals that stay behind. So, juz' min al-tahara, they call it a two-process cleaning or cleansing. One is removing the dirt or what is najas, and izalat al-hadath wa tathir makan أو الأثر. Okay? So this is a constant process that continues with us, because every time you get angry, your soul becomes polluted. Anger could leave a grudge. Shaitan can come and press you to do something because you're angry, right? Then you have to constantly purify yourself. We'll talk about this process when we get down to this ayah number 9. But let us go from the beginning. From the beginning, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, by the sun and its bright early daylight. Some people in the interpretation, they say that duhaha is the whole day, because it turns on in the morning and it continues lighting until the evening. But this in Arabic is called al-nahar. وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا. So al-nahar, the daylight, is much longer than al-duha. Al-duha is the time between sunrise, 15 minutes after sunrise, until right before Zohr. This period is called al-duha, which is the bright light of the sun that is increasing in brightness. By the more daylight time goes by, the more brightness the light becomes. Okay? So, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, by the sun and its bright light, وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا, and by the moon as it follows. Follows means when the sun disappears or sets, then comes the night time. What is the mark for the night time? It starts off by seeing the moon. Okay? So the moon light starts on in the night, and overnight it becomes brighter because it contrasts with the night darkness. The light of the moon, which is luminous, it becomes brighter. But in the beginning, it becomes mild between the fading of the sun daylight when it sets, and then the moonlight starts to come in. It goes brighter through the night. So Allah is actually swearing by what we call natural phenomenon. But in Islamic terms, those are creations of Allah. Ash-Shams, wal-Duha, wal-Layl, wal-Qamar. All of these are creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah wanted the whole 24 hour to become daylight, He would have. But who would bring us night to rest? And the Quran makes this point in Surat Al-Naml. If Allah wants the whole 24 hour to be night time, who is going to bring us light to go about life and make living? Again, Surat Al-Naml raises that possibility, saying, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمُ النَّهَارَ سَرْمَدًا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ مَنْ إِلَهٌ غَيْرُ اللَّهِ يَأْتِيكُمْ بِلَيْلٍ تَسْكُنُونَ فِيهِ. Who other than Allah of gods, who would bring you night time to rest in. And the other question also, the opposite, is raised in Surat An-Naml. So as the surah goes on, it says, by the moon as it follows the sun, when it fades into the darkness of the night, and the night starts to take over the daylight, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, the moonlight also starts to come up. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, and by the daylight time, when it clears the darkness of the night and makes the sun clear. When the sun rises, the sky is very beautiful. When there's no cloud and you look at the daylight coming up, it's very beautiful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by those beautiful phenomena of His creations to attract us to the greatness of those blessings. We cannot live without the sun, either the sunlight or the sun heat, or the role of the sun in our life as people, or in the life of plants that we eat or animals that we grow. It has a role in everything. وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, and by the daylight when it clears the sun and makes it obvious away from the night time and the darkness of the night. Then وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, and by the night as it completely covers the sun. The sun becomes completely covered in the night darkness. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, so the sun, as if it is concealed or completely covered in the night time. Once I was traveling to the east, taking a flight to the east at night, leaving from here, from Washington. So as you move up to maybe the hour, maybe Washington time was about 2:30 in the morning, you start to see the daylight coming in front of the plane. If you look out of the window, you see very thin light in the horizon coming up, and it starts to be more and more, and the sky starts to clear, which shows how the daylight, which comes from the sun, makes the sun take over the sky. It becomes obvious and clear. And the night time, al-layl, when it comes, it does the opposite. It covers the sun. So when you're coming from the east, or if you arrived in somewhere in the east at night, you see also the darkness of the night kind of like creeping on the daylight, and the daylight keeps coming behind you when your flight is to the east, right? وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, and by the night when it covers and conceals the sun. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا, all of these, the sun and the daylight and the night darkness and the moon, right? All of these are phenomena that are related to the relationship between our earth, the sun and the moon, which creates the night time and the daytime. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by the heaven, وَالسَّمَاءِ, but not in relationship to the sun and the moon or anything. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا, it's pointing to the most miraculous thing about heaven, that it is built of very strong, formidable structure. وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. Sama, the heaven, is built by Allah's own hands, and it is formidable, and it is held by His power. إن الله يمسك السماوات والأرض أن تزولا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is holding the sun in its place and the moon and the earth in its place. If they were to run out of orbit, things would run very bad, which means only Allah is holding them. وَلَئِنْ زَالَتَا, and if they slip out of their position or their orbit, مَا أَمْسَكَهُنَّ مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِهِ, nobody is going to hold them to their place other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالسَّمَاء وَمَا بَنَاهَا. وَمَا, even though it is mostly used for the inanimate, but it is also, it can include the animate, which means وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا. وَمَا here is in reference to Allah, the one who built the heaven without columns. Like all structures have columns and corners, but as-sama is built without columns, right? وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ وَالسَّمَاءَ بِغَيْرِ عَمَدٍ تَرَوْنَهَا. It has no columns, as you could see for yourself. It's an amazing ayah from Ayat Allah. Now he spoke about as-sama. Ayah number 6, وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا, and by the earth and the one who made it spread over the place continuously. And this is, طَحَاهَا is here, and دَحَاهَا in Surat Al-Nazi'at, both point to the spherical nature of the globe, that it doesn't end at any point. Wherever you go on the earth, there is earth more than where you have, okay? And where you are, or where you get, or where you want to be. There is always earth, which means it's extended endlessly, because it's not flat. It is spherical. Like any egg shape or ball-like sphere, it has no end. Whatever you start, it's a start, but there is no end. You could keep roaming the earth endlessly, and you will not fall from the earth. Okay? وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا. And in Surat Al-Nazi'at, وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. Dahaha also means made it spherical, extendedly without end. Like if you look at this table, the table is extended up to the area it occupies. But after that, it's not extended. It has an end. It has an edge. Right? But if you have a ball, it's extended all over. At any point that you stand, it is extended. It doesn't end. وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. Here Allah is moving from talking about creatures to talk about the one creature that the Quran is addressing, the insan. And the insan is significantly influenced by what kind of nafs one has. And nafs is what makes the house of desires. If the heart is the house of feelings, emotions, right? The nafs is the house of desires, wishes, hopes, fears, worries. It's all in the heart. And this is why people who have anxiety, they get heart palpitation because they are afraid. Something is not comfortable. People who are worried constantly, they also could develop heart disease if they do not take care of their anxiety and constant worries. So, an-nafs could influence the body, and the body could influence an-nafs. So, where does an-nafs come from, and what is it exactly? An-nafs comes into being as a result of the blowing of the spirit into the human body. So the body is created first, right? And then only after the spirit is blown into it, it becomes a full-fledged human being, even though in a small size in the mother's womb. But then that growing and that development continues until you become a full-fledged human being and you are ready to be delivered out of the mother's womb as a baby. But then you stay dependent for some years until you grow much more mature and you become somewhat capable and independent. Okay? Fully capable and fully independent. Then you become responsible for everything you say or do. So, an-nafs could be defined as that part that makes the body a human being as a result of the spirit being blown into the body. Even though an-nafs has a word in English which I define as the soul, and many people define it as the soul, which is in Arabic an-nafs. But unfortunately, so many Western writers and authors and thinkers, they confuse an-nafs and the soul and the spirit and use them exchangeably. Okay? But in the Arabic language, an-nafs is an-nafs and ar-ruh is ar-ruh. They have two separate but connected functions. Ar-ruh is what brings life to the human body. An-nafs is the byproduct of the spirit entering into the body. When the spirit is blown into the body, you become a nafs. You become a human being. Also, an-nafs or al-ana, some people confuse it. But for good reason, because nafsuka hiya anta. You are yourself, and yourself is you. Anta huwa nafsuk, wa nafsuka hiya anta. And that's why in the Quran, you read Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, يَوْمَ تَأْتِي كُلُّ نَفْسٍ تُجَادِلُ عَنْ نَفْسِهَا. So you will be trying to defend yourself, to save what? Yourself, right? So whom are you saving? You're saving you. You're saving your soul. Okay? And a nafs is not one type or another. Some people think that there is types of nufus, because the Quran talks about, for example, an-nafs al-lawwama or an-nafs al-mutma'inna. Every nafs could be lawwama at times, could be mutma'inna at times, and could be ammara bis-su' at times. An-nafs fil Quran, the word an-nafs has come with some descriptions in the Quran. So in Surat Yusuf, inna an-nafsa la'ammaratun bis-su'. Right? In Surat Al-Fajr, يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة. Right? So it makes an impression that this is one type of nafs and this is one type of nafs. I'm saying no, it shouldn't be understood in this way. It should be understood in the global nature of the nafs. The global nature of the nafs is at times one could feel very mutma'in, very calm, very accepting to Allah, to His qada and qadar and everything, right? And some other times it could be anxious, right? Some other times it could be nafs that encourages you, commands you to do evil. Whether you are able to resist or not is another issue. But it could be ammara bisu, as it's mentioned in Surat Yusuf. Okay? So there is al-nafs al-mutma'inna wal-nafs al-ammara bisu. It is one and the same person. Okay? And the third one is what? Al-nafs al-lawwama. The soul that always constantly keeps blaming you, keeps giving you second thoughts, to always second guess yourself. Okay? This is the nafs lawwama. But again, every nafs of ours has the three natures, but at different times. When I am happy, I am donating, I am good, right? When Allah gives me, فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَمَهُ يَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ. Very happy and very outgoing and very pleased, right? But when it is tight, right, then the same nafs could turn against me by urging me to take revenge and to attack back and to do something evil. This is nafs ammara bisu. But this description is not all the time because of this ayah. What is this ayah? Ayah number 8. Ayah number 8 says, ayah number 7, it says that by the nafs, which is the soul or the person, right? And the one who perfected it, made it perfect. Perfect in what way? Perfect that it functions as Allah meant it to function. That's a perfection. Perfection of creation means that something is functional as it is supposed to do. Your hand is working as a hand. That's perfection. Your leg is working whenever you ask it or you want it, it's cooperating. Your guts are working whether you like it or not. You have no control over what's going on inside. But a nafs, do you know, sisters, if just one group is talking and one person is listening, this is too noisy for us. Sisters, I don't mind the kids' noise, but please help us by taking any discussion outside of the prayer hall. يا أختي يلي بتتكلمي الله يهديكي. يا أختي الله يهديكي. ونفس وما سواها, by the soul and the one who made it in the best of shapes. خلق الإنسان في أحسن تقويم. The best of shape, the best of faculties, the best of composition, the best of dimensions, proportions, everything. Then this nafs فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. He inspired it and showed it the two sides of itself, which is the wickedness and the evil side, and the righteous side. So the soul is like a coin. It has two faces. One face is wicked face, and one face is righteous face. Every human being is capable of both. Every human being is capable of righteousness as much as he is capable of wickedness. And we know when to use each side. We know that very well. Give you some examples so that some of us, unfortunately, some of us create false excuses about my role and the role of myself and my relationship and how much control I have. So when they do something bad and they know it, they say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just a human. By saying this and insisting to use that to say I'm a human only when I do something bad, I am discounting that I am capable of doing better or different. Right? You are a human whether you do righteous deeds or you do wicked deeds. You are still a human. Give you some application for this in real life. When we get engaged with the purpose of marriage, right? Do we show our wicked side? Did it disappear? Did it die? No, it did not. What do? We behave as decent humans, controlling that evil side, right? After marriage, we get the other side out and say, I want to be myself. As if the person is saying, myself is evil because I'm a human. I'm capable of evil. But for months during engagement, or weeks, or whatever the length of time is, you were behaving very well, right? What did you do? You just did not kill the rest of yourself. You just allowed your better self to come up and stopped your evil side from taking over, which is basically called self-control. We exercise self-control so that we are able to succeed. When you go to get starting on a new job, do you start by calling absent? Does anybody in his right mind start off working in a new job by calling absent, no matter what happens, right? No, we don't. Why? We exercise self-control. So even if you wake up sick, right, you try to force yourself to go to the first day on the job because you don't want to create negative perception about what quality of person you are. So the point I'm trying to make is Allah has given us the capacity of acting righteously or acting wickedly, depending on our appreciation of the outcome. And we use it accordingly. I always use this example, and it is quite powerful. People who say, I cannot control myself when somebody makes me angry. That's my nature. I'm hot-blooded. I'm hot-headed. Fine. So I ask, last time a policeman stopped you, and he was unreasonable, did you curse at him? Did you swear against him and his parents? Why do you do this with your wife? Why do you do this with your son? Oh, there's another rule that comes to play here. And the rule is, من أمن العقاب أساء الأدب. Anyone who is feeling safe and secure as far as the consequences are concerned, they watch or observe no limits. When I know that I can control the consequences, I don't care. But if I know I could lose a lot, I care, and I take care, and I pay attention. This is how we should understand فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. I call this the Quran in action. The Quran in real action, minute by minute with us in our day lifetime and in our night lifetime. As to how do you think influences how you behave. Your calculation of the consequences influence the choices you make as a result. Okay? So if I care to keep my wife happy, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to be the best for my own family, then I have to watch what I say. I have to watch how I say it. I have to watch when do I say it, right? But if I don't care, then I say anything and do anything, and later on I say, I'm sorry, I was angry, or I was mad, or I misunderstood you. All flimsy, weak excuses come to play. Instead of controlling myself, I want to control everybody else but myself. But actually what we learn from the Prophet ﷺ is that the way to control your environment starts with controlling your inner environment, your inner self, controlling how you think. Why do you allow your adrenaline to go out of control when you can't control it? Let this be for people who are unable to control themselves, mentally sick or lost their mind. But as normal people would want to do, it is to control yourself, to control your ideas. Instead of interpreting things in the worst case scenario, in the worst light, you give the benefit of the doubt to everybody as much as you give yourself. Then you will be living in a peaceful environment. It doesn't matter that despite all your great efforts to be as righteous, as decent as possible, we will all meet people who are not as logical. We will all meet and have to deal with people who are not even mature. But those should be cornered as a few, and we should not behave like them because it expands the irrational exchange between people. So, is it right for someone, knowing what we know now, that the fujur is a gift from Allah and the righteousness is a gift from Allah, delivered to our hands to control ourselves? Okay? How could be wickedness a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? In other words, why did Allah enable us of that much evil, killing thousands of people, millions of people, destroying other communities, all of the evil that we see? How and why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would allow this to happen? Allah does not want this to happen. Why doesn't He stop it? He made it our responsibility to stop it. Just don't do evil. Don't drive over the speed limit because you're likely to cause an accident, right? Don't do a surgery if you are not trained to do surgery, right? Don't lead people that you have no training to lead until you have the training to lead. Don't ask for a position bigger than your capacity or your ability if you cannot do it. But when we start wanting things beyond what Allah allows us, then we create all sorts of trouble. Dictators, for example, are a huge example of people who want to control others no matter what. Every one of us wants to control other people around him, right? But we know better. We understand that life does not go well in that way. that as much as Allah has given power to certain people, we should heed whatever we can and tolerate as much as we can, unless they are going to cause us harm. If anybody wants to lead us and cause us harm, waste our resources or anything like this, no, we should stop and say, no, you're not allowed to do that. But otherwise, we should cooperate in matters of goodness and never cooperate in matters of evil and wickedness. I hope that this covers this subject, because this subject is very central in the taklif of humans and the empowerment of humans with free will. We have free will because we will face responsibility as to how we use this free will. Are we going to use it to develop the earth, as Allah told us? هو الذي أنشأكم من الأرض واستعمركم فيها. He is the one who set you up in the land, and He is the one who gave you the power to develop it, to improve it, to leave it better than how you find it. Then what is my responsibility when it comes to al-fujur? What is the function of wickedness or wrongdoing, not wrongdoing, wickedness and the evil power inside the human soul? The function of this power, and that's why it is put in the human soul, is to push back against evil powers. When somebody wants to kill you, you're not going to offer him a cup of coffee. By the time you make the coffee, you're done. So if somebody is threatening you, you will defend yourself by all means. It's a matter of survival, self-defense. So the evil side with which we commit even murder is not meant to use it wantonly, to use it maliciously, but to only use it if there is no better alternative. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the better alternative is to push back in a better way. Idfa billati hiya ahsan. If we cannot, then we use whatever force Allah has given us to push back against evil forces. So the wicked side, the evil side, is a gift in that sense, because if man is created helpless, only a nice creature, then he could be victimized by all other creatures and by each other. Okay? But we all have the power for righteousness and have the power for wickedness, and this is a community protection, that no one gets more power than needed over others or to hurt others. How do we deal with this? Two advice, two instructions. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Successful indeed the one who purifies oneself. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. قَدْ تفيد certainty. It means certainly successful the one who purifies oneself. And as we mentioned before, purification means constant cleansing. I want to get rid of the evil elements inside me, all the evil sources, all the evil influences, including not only inside me, but whatever surrounds me, because we affect each other as well. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Anyone who fails, he fails because he would engage himself in corruption. He would corrupt himself, and then he would want to corrupt everybody around, and the environment, and the resources, and the processes, and the systems. So corruption comes as a human participation in evil activities that either changes the system as Allah intended it to be, or that it changes other humans opposite to what Allah wants them to think and do. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Then it comes briefly with the story about Thamud, the people of Thamud who crossed the limits and transgressed beyond the limits Allah has set. كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِطَغْوَاهَا. Thamud have denied their prophet the guidance that he got them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know the story of Thamud briefly is that it is a community of hard-headed people. When their prophet came to them, Prophet Salih, they insisted on him, get us a sign, move this mountain, do something. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for them a she-camel that came as an adult she-camel out of the stones of the mountain. And they saw it with their own eyes. They know the mountain, and it came from inside the stones of the mountain, a living she-camel. And he told them, this is a she-camel. هذه ناقة الله لكم آية. It is a sign and an ayah from Allah. Do not harm it, okay? And let it roam the earth and eat whatever she wants. They only had one well in that community. So he told them that Allah has decreed that you drink one day and she drinks the other day. So don't cross your limit. But they grew desperate after some time, and they decided that they will have to kill this she-camel so that they can get all the water all the time. The water was turned for them into milk the other day. So when they don't have water one day, they had the milk of the she-camel all throughout the day, and it was enough for everybody. So this is kind of like very stark, obvious, clear ayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they ended up conspiring, and they got the evil ones who agreed to knock this she-camel, and they killed it. كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها. When their most wicked one went out of his way to do what? To kill the she-camel. So فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها. He told them, don't harm this she-camel. Let it drink one day as the system has been ordained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you drink from her milk the other day. فَكَذَّبُوهُ فَعَقَرُوهَا. They belied him and they rejected his message, and they knocked it down dead. فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ بِذَنبِهِمْ فَسَوَّاهَا. The word damdama, it shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not crush them all at once. It was like crushing over a period of time, stones coming upon them and stones piling upon them until they were all stoned fully to death. They were all destroyed because of their sin. And this destruction did not leave anyone. And one may wonder, since one or two of them are the ones who executed the killing of the she-camel, what is the flaw of the rest of the community? It is that they did not stop them. It did not stop them. فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ بِذَنبِهِمْ فَسَوَّاهَا وَلَا يَخَافُ عُقْبَاهَا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't concern himself with the consequences of their destruction. I think I will stop here. Just this is the end of Surat Al-Shams, and next time inshallah we'll do Surat Al-Layl, I'm sorry I cannot take questions. I have to go renew my wudu to be ready inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.